Welcome. This is episode 1 of a podcast me and Cybershell have been thinking about doing for quite a while. It's pretty much going to be about telling internet history stories or whatever.
I mean, originally we just wanted to have a video talking about, the subject of this first video is going to be clearing up the rest of our Lowtax lore and our something awful just brain rot we have from working on that video and just getting the rest of that out there. All the shit we couldn't elegantly fit into the video itself, because we're trying to keep the flow tight on that thing. So there was a lot of bullshit that would have been funny to include, but we just ultimately had to scrap it. So that's what we're going to be starting off with. But in the future, we'll be talking about things that might be a little easier to people to just get into if they haven't seen the video. If you haven't seen the Lowtax video, by the way, you probably should go watch that before listening to this.
All right, so you actually rewatched the Lowtax video. I did not in preparation for this, but I did write notes that I'll be referring to.
Right. I guess, yeah, to be fair, if you watched it, it premiered 1 month ago today, actually.
Oh, geez.
And
we didn't plan that.
So, yeah, we've successfully managed to block it out of our minds. I've been reading the comments, so it's been in my memory. I've been thinking about it, seeing the reactions to it, and reconsidering parts of it. Overall, I still think it turned out really good. We've been originally thinking about doing this. We started talking about this back in 2020, but just sort of in a casual way. We should totally do that something awful documentary, but it's so much work.
So those are two things that we should probably clarify up front. Firstly, we came up with it pretty early in 2021 and we started working on it in the summer. What's crazy is that we were weeks away from reaching out to Rich for an interview before the news broke.
Yeah, it was the timing on this project was actually kind of insane because originally way back in late 2020 we were just shooting the idea of a something awful documentary and how do you cover every single thing that ever happened? It's too much. So I mean eventually we sort of pared that down to a sort of character study on Rich Lowtax. We're probably gonna call him Rich a few times, just not like we're on a first name basis.
The second thing I want to clarify is Cybershell had heavy involvement in this project, and without his research help as a something awful goon, this video would be not nearly as good or in depth as it is.
Yeah, I was gonna say I was a goon back in the day, so I was able to provide sort of a first-hand account. I wasn't even I don't even consider myself an old goon, honestly. I registered in 2007. It was still relevant, but it was sort of waning in relevancy even by that point.
Yeah, that was around when it started getting more political.
I had been lurking for a while, but the whole $10 and I didn't feel like I needed to post anything until the Let's Play sub forum was founded, and I was kind of in all that stuff back in the day.
Yeah, you were one of the earliest Let's Players, really, because you were following the something awful trend.
Yeah. I was doing LPs back in the day with Slow Beef and all those guys, and there's still it's sort of a diaspora. They've all spread out across the internet, although the internet's kind of feels like it's bigger than ever before. There's more people on it, but it still feels smaller than ever. There's only 5 websites, so it's easy to sort of keep in touch with them on Twitter and stuff. It's not too bad.
There's more people, but it's way more centralized. Which kind of sucks, but
it's weird. It's I don't want to go too. I don't want to immediately.
We're gonna derail
go
this.
Full boomer hours. The internet used to be so much better, but
this would be a good subject for a different episode.
Anyways, I was gonna say I have an excuse for being in this part of this fucking video because I was a goon. I have goon brain rot from being in firsthand. I don't know what the hell Bernie's excuse for agreeing to make a Lowtax video was.
I've always just been fascinated with how much something awful has changed the internet and how little people really acknowledge it and how few people really know about Lowtax.
That was just something you had to explain to me because again as the something awful brain rot in my mind, oh yeah, obviously it's waned in relevance now, but everybody knows that something awful is the genesis, the flashpoint of internet culture, but most people online really don't know that. The most they might even know, and they probably wouldn't, is that something awful was the site that 4chan spun off of. It's a little complicated because
or Slenderman
or Slenderman or one of the more mainstream things. Maybe I was gonna say All Your Base, but do kids on TikTok even know about All Your Base? Because that one's too old now. You couldn't escape something awful. To be fair, something awful and Lowtax, they're not the same thing exactly.
We do go into that in the video because their paths divulge pretty early on.
True. That was the thing. It was sort of hard to balance. We had to explain how it's even if that is true, he did create the site. And just by doing that, he had so much influence over it. And just these little decisions he made, I'm going to ban the furries. I'm going to ban all these anime people. The just the butterfly effect. Like, oh, you know, if Lowtax didn't make something awful, someone else would have. But they would have had totally different, weird decisions that would have butterfly affected the whole fucking internet, and it would have been a completely different timeline. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but going back, I think I first found out about Lowtax probably around when the Schmorky allegations came out, and that's when I started really looking into just something awful. Even back in the day, I was planning to do like some kind of video about Lowtax. I was kind of the opinion that, oh, Lowtax is cool. I'm going to make a video like sucking him off and like calling him like this cool guy on the internet. Like one of those like lame video essays that just sucks off the subject. That's what I was planning to do like a few years ago. And obviously everything changed.
Again, just from being on something awful, like the whole site sort of held him in like a reverential respect, not because he necessarily deserved it, just because he owned the site. And if you didn't respect him and, you know, suck him off, he was liable to just ban you. So that was the thing. Like, I don't even think people are necessarily even aware of like, yeah, you could get banned for just mod sass on something awful. You weren't allowed to talk back to the mods and shit, let alone, and that's just the mods, let alone Lowtax himself. Like, people were like, there was such a different site culture back then. Like, people were like, oh, you shouldn't even be allowed to rate a Lowtax thread 1 if you're not going to explain your reasoning. You know what I mean? So yeah, people really were like, oh, he's cool or whatever. And, you know,
he had a real cult of personality back in the day.
It was, yeah, he really was used to just people worshiping the ground that he walked on, because he sort of, I don't know.
have this in my notes, like to bring this up later, but that's also like a funny thing about that one Ebaumsworld song that Neil C. Cierga made.
Right. He was portrayed as like this cool guy or whatever.
Yeah.
This like muscular guy or whatever. That's one of those things that like, I don't even want to say it aged poorly, even though I guess it did, but like, he's funny.
Juxtaposed as like cooler than Ebaum when really they were kind of in similar positions. Like, it's just that Rich actually gave credit to the form.
Right.
In terms of like actually like what they were creating. Like, okay, I guess that's not fair. Rich made like Doomhouse. Ebaum didn't make anything.
Yeah,
but
I know. I hear what you mean though. Like, the thesis of that song is Eric Bauman was a bad guy because he's profiting off of other people's work. But like, that's literally what Lowtax is doing. But just, you know,
yeah, he wasn't
just stealing things and slapping a watermark on it. He was a little more involved than that. You know, it wasn't the same thing, but it was sort of the same fundamental idea, I guess. That's being a little, you know, not charitable to him, I guess.
I guess to be charitable, he did give back to the community.
Right. That was a little bit of a whole web crusade, like the whole culture of the web. And what if you weren't aware of this, it was a little more than just something awful. Like YTM&D was a big one.
There was a good video by Wang about it.
Just other content sites like Albino Black Sheep and you know, even Newgrounds, anywhere that could have had content that could get ripped off and put on Ebaumsworld, they were like, you know, fuck those guys. But it's so weird. People were so upset about the idea that, oh, this site is just a content aggregator. It just steals all this content and like doesn't even really give credit. Like, that's like what the internet became. Like, that's what Reddit and Twitter practically are nowadays. You know what I mean? Like, it's not...
They definitely lost.
Eric's quite a slut. Other people's work has made him rich. He hired some male prostitutes, dressed them up in three-piece suits. His faithful team of lawyers made the internet his bitch. Till Lowtax came along, punched him in the face and banged his mom. And Mr. Bauman, quite disgraced, had his dumb website erased. Well, sadly that's a lie, there's still an Ebaumsworld.
So once the documentary came out, we kind of expected a lot more controversial of a response because it came out pretty close to Lowtax's death.
Right. Yeah, so just real quick, we were sort of getting into this. We sort of implied this earlier, but just the timing of this fucking documentary. Like, we had been working on it like a little bit throughout 2021, but we had started to like really pick up steam a couple months prior. And we were like literally a couple weeks tops from reaching out to Lowtax and to all these people for interviews when the fucking news broke. And that was like such a surreal moment.
Yeah, so once the documentary came out, we were like, people are going to think that we only made this to capitalize on his death, when it's like the original crux of the documentary was going to be an interview with Lowtax, and we were basically planning to try to get him to reflect on all of this stuff that we bring up in the doc. Now, obviously, the narrative and tone changed a lot following that.
Right. The first half would probably be mostly the same, but the second half definitely has the ending in particular, of course.
Yeah, the second half went through a massive rewrite.
Yeah, honestly, like, okay, I don't want to say anything too fucked up about this. glad that the video is definitively over. You know what I mean? Because if he was still alive, then, maybe some other crazy drama could happen.
Unless
our video
we
outdated.
get sued by Lowtax's mother.
Yeah, that's the one thing. Yeah, in terms of bad response.
That's why I put the disclaimer at the front.
Yeah, if you weren't aware of this, if you don't have insane Lowtax brain rot, then, you probably wouldn't be. But his mom is like, I don't want to say anything defamatory here, but she's
very litigious.
There is still a court case going on between her and Ashley. I don't know all the details exactly, but it's just about like money
it's all
bullshit.
About just his estate. But like shortly after Lowtax passed, his mother, I think, was messaging people, like responding to like Facebook posts and like threatening them to take down their like mean comments. And it was like very bizarre.
It's possible she just hasn't seen it. I don't know if she is an active YouTube watcher, but I mean, I don't know. It's possible. If Ashley's seen it.
Ashley's seen it. I don't know if Megan's seen it, but Ashley is in contact with Megan. A bunch of Something Awful like moderators have seen it.
I was mostly interested in the reception of Something Awful because I knew they were going to be extremely critical of it, and they were probably the most harsh reactions out of anyone, honestly. But I think most people seem to appreciate it. Like, I would say the reception is a lot more positive. Like, just because, I feel like before it came out, I was afraid we were going to get it from both sides. I thought people were going to get on us hard for, not portraying him badly enough and being like too apologetic about him, being like, how dare you mention that he had influence over the internet? And then I also thought we were going to get it too hard from
right
people
after,
like, his mom.
And that's the thing too. A lot of people were saying that we were too mean. When Lowtax died, he trended on Twitter and every tweet was just like mocking him for dying.
That was genuinely surreal because like we had been working on this, like it was like a weird, like I felt a very weird mixture of emotions. Like, he is a piece of shit. I'm not gonna say I'm not apologizing for him or whatever, but it was so weird to see like,
but they were like dancing on his grave,
shitting on him. I saw
the only person who wasn't like that was like Rocco from Mega 64.
A few people had a little bit of, they were just like, damn, this is fucked up. Like, that's the best response he could get. Like, there wasn't even anyone openly saying, oh, I'm so sad he died. He was a great guy. There were just people going, damn, this is fucked up. Basically, like, that was the best he could get. That was a thing before he even died. I kept bringing this up to Bernie. I just kept saying it over and over to him in different ways. Like, I can't believe how little of an audience he managed to retain. Because I just remember him having complete dominion over like this entire community of people who would worship him. And then he was down to like double-digit streaming numbers. Like, by the end, he was literally streaming to like 20 people. I was like, how is the Lowtax streaming to 20? I can stream to like 10 times that many people. And in my mind, I'm so much like less of like an e-celeb than Lowtax was, or you know what I mean?
We severely misguessed what the reaction would be. I at least thought people would watch the video like with the knowledge that he was dead.
This is a good point. I didn't push super hard for this, but originally the video was going to be like the death of Lowtax. And I thought that was just a good sort of clickbaity title. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I didn't want to do something as generic as the rise and fall of Lowtax, but like the death of Lowtax. Like, I thought that would be a good thing. And in my mind, he trended on Twitter. Like, everybody who would know about Lowtax dying, like anyone who would care would know about it already, right? But it trended for one day and then nobody ever talked about it again because
we were getting comments from like moderators from Something Awful who lived in his basement saying that they didn't know he died. We got a lot of like comments like that.
If you don't believe us, not that you would have any reason not to, but just scroll through the comments of that video. You can find like 100 comments. Oh yeah, you can show them on screen. There's so many fucking comments saying like, dude, I didn't know he died until I watched this video, which is, I wasn't expecting that. That really surprised me. How many people there were who knew about Lowtax, but just had no idea about even any of the drama about his later life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So Something Awful like made a thread about the documentary. It changed, I noticed, after Ashley publicly responded to it in that thread. And so just to like preface this, or just to give a bit of context, we were in contact with Ashley briefly because she did have interest in appearing in the documentary for an interview and providing some legal documents. But unfortunately, it seems like that case, is ongoing. So it's not really a great idea. When the documentary came out, she finally reacted to it on Something Awful, and I can just read it. For the record, Rich came to Vancouver to meet after we had been speaking online for a few months, and I was not into his lavish lifestyle. In fact, I was under the impression he was broke, mostly because he would never shut up about how he was broke. I paid for my meals, hotels, travel, etc. when we were dating, and well into the marriage, including my own wedding band. Has a little red flag there. I was also asked to participate in this and didn't, so it's definitely my fault those things weren't correct. Also, it's pronounced Kyanka, which, okay, just, I'm coping about that. I know. All my research for this was like in text. I didn't watch like many like interviews for it. I just assumed I had it right when I pronounced it. And there's other things like that too. Like I say uwe when it's uva, and I should know that. But I'm just fucking stupid, okay?
I will just say...
I have no excuse for that.
Here's my excuse for that. First of all, you're going to have to cut that out, because we had to just say it was on purpose. We did it to troll him after he's dead, and everyone's just going to say his name wrong. And if you crossed us, if you crossed me and Bernie, we're going to make a documentary about you after you die, and we're going to pronounce your name wrong. And then everyone's going to always say your name wrong for the rest of eternity.
Oh, God. But, okay. So... Ashley ends the post by saying, I do appreciate the job they did on this. It was informative, and it was neat to see photos and learn stuff I hadn't known before. So that was a thing I was really worried about.
I was worried about Ashley's response because she did ghost us. I don't blame her. I was not upset with her because
I understand.
She was like she seemed interested in helping us, and then she's like, I need to like talk to my lawyer, and then she just never got back to us. So I was just like, she probably is legally better for not to talk to people doing a documentary of this.
And to be honest, the main reason that I reached out to Ashley was not just for an interview. I was afraid that when the documentary came out, she would like get really upset because it's like, oh, this is a Vulture piece.
I thought, yes, we reached out to her immediately. Well, immediately. We waited a couple
days. Not immediately,
days.
But we sent proof. We sent proof that this documentary has been in production
we let
for a
her
while.
know. I just wanted to give her the opportunity to weigh in if she wanted to, and so like she had that chance, and it's fine, and she seemed fine with it. It
just
so worked
like
out
a
in the end.
quick like weird piece of like trivia, like coincidence, a coinky dink. I before any of the editing was done or even the script was done, I edited together a teaser trailer for the documentary, and it is on my channel. It was uploaded, I think, November 9th.
Yeah, it's unlisted, but it was uploaded the day it happened, the day he killed himself. It was kind of eerie, honestly. Because again, like I was saying, we had been working on this project for quite a while, but like sort of as a slow burn. It was only in the second half of the year we started really like we doing outlines, started doing drafts. That was the day he died, but we didn't find out until 2 days later, so we had no idea at the time.
Ashley left a bunch of comments on the video as well. There's a lot of interesting stuff that I don't think the public really knows at all. So someone asks, I'm sorry, how did Megan browse something awful if she was so conservative? It makes zero sense on all fronts. And then Ashley says she was friends with the Goon, and Rich and her met in person at a party. He knew very much about her religious beliefs and pretended that it didn't bother him when they were dating. So yeah, that actually was a lot more crazy than I kind of got into in the doc. So Megan began having Bible studies, and that was another reason Rich like constantly left the house, because he just couldn't fucking stand that they were doing Bible studies. So
right, there's a lot that I don't even know about like his first marriage or whatever.
Yeah,
it is almost a little unfortunate that so much of the video has to be dedicated to just like airing out he had bad marriages and a bad love life, and we have to kind of explain why. It's like I don't relish having to do that. I'm not trying to put the guy on blast, but it's all directly relevant to the end of his life. So
Brad P says, one interesting thing. The Secret Service never subpoenaed something awful about the laissez-faire stuff. Lowtax made that all up to justify deleting the form. That's something I didn't know. I just took his word at face value.
Yeah, see, this is so funny because, like, while working on the documentary, the more we worked on it...
I didn't know he was just a fucking liar.
The more I would, like, find a clip of Lowtax saying something and then realizing he was just completely lying about it. Like, I knew he would fib and I would stretch the truth, but he would just completely fabricate things wholesale. Like, that's the kind of lying
Which
I'm
is
not even, like...
That's great due diligence. I appreciate that, like 6 years later or whatever, however, like, so long after, they were just like, I hate Lowtax. Let's fact check this.
It is funny, like, people would just accept the shit he said back in the day because, you weren't going to publicly be like, I think Lowtax is lying. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he'll ban you, and then you'll have to pay another $10.
But now, people would, in retrospect, go back and, like, yeah, he would just lie about all sorts of shit. He would lie about how much it costs to run the forums. He would lie about all this.
That really brings us to what Ashley says, because this is pretty fucking crazy. After we separated, he also revealed to me that he lied about the girls' schools being called with false abuse allegations. What that means, okay, so basically what I found while I was looking through like his old Twitters for research is in like 2017, he posted a screenshot claiming that his daughter's school was being called with someone trolling him and like claiming that he was abusing like his daughter. But Ashley is saying that during their divorce proceedings, he admitted that he lied about that, which is like insane because that's like this like huge lie, and he only did it for like Twitter likes.
That is a really fucked up thing to lie about. Like, yeah, I'm sure all sorts of weird details about shit he lied about came out.
He lied about someone calling his daughter's school to say that he abused her. Like, what is that? Why would you do that? I don't understand. What was the point?
It is pretty messed up behavior. Like, he has received a lot of harassment over the years, but like that's why it's even more fucked up to lie about shit like that. You know what I mean?
It makes you wonder, like, how much, like, can you really take him at his word? I don't know.
It's very troubling. You know, he would just, I knew he had like a drug and pill problem. I'm not like super, some people are really good at like identifying when someone's high on pills and stuff, and you know, like identifying lines and little telltale signs. Like if you have a lot of personal experience with that stuff, you're gonna be better at it than I am. But he would just constantly be like going on stream and be like, yeah, I'm sober, I'm this, I'm that. When he was constantly like pilled out of his mind.
Clearly
like,
not fucking sober.
He had no issue just completely lying, bald face, straight to the camera. And yeah, like the more, you know, we worked on it, the more instances you came across him doing it, the more we'd have to look back at previous shit he said and be like, okay, we have to double fact check this now. But obviously some shit slipped through the cracks, like the laissez-faire thing. That one was just such a commonly like spread story that I didn't think to fact check it.
Okay, so next section in my notes are what we missed. I have a few things, but is there anything you'd want to get to first? Like, what do you think? What do you most regret not putting in?
I don't know. You pretty much covered it in your notes, I think. Like it would have been nice to have like the hurricane story, and like, you know, that's a thing that engendered a lot of sympathy to something awful back in the day. Just super quick. Back in the day, like when Hurricane Katrina happened, you know, Lowtax and something awful, they had like a PayPal donate link, and like a bunch of people raised money. But then PayPal like froze the account because, you know, suspicious behavior because all the money coming into it, and it was a whole fucking big drama thing. To this day, I'm still like, I don't trust PayPal. You know what I mean? I mean, you shouldn't. It's kind of a fucked up. I don't need to get into that.
You've
but
been
like,
conditioned.
Yeah, that was just a nice thing. Like something awful wasn't always this weird. Like I think sometimes some people who watched the video got this idea that SA was just this malevolent force that did nothing but like make the internet more toxic.
They did good.
They did good. There was like, and not just that. There was like good, wholesome, fun creations. Like, I mean, you can feel however you want about the site. Certainly, like you can feel that it was the impetus of all that stuff. But like, it just like, I don't know. I didn't want to paint too slanted of a picture of it. I wanted to make sure it came out sort of an even-handed, like, you know, people enjoyed posting on it back in the day. It was sort of like, I don't want to say it was like a super friendly community necessarily, but, you know, there was a little bit of like camaraderie among goons.
Who are writers that you think probably deserved a larger piece in the documentary, like a larger role?
Yeah, honestly, the thing is, I don't even know what half those guys are like up to nowadays. Like, I know John Hendren's still on Twitter. Most of these guys are on Twitter now. Like, you can find like early something awful articles. I'm not even trying to be like cancel culture about this, but there's definitely some shit in there that, you know, people wouldn't look too good today.
Quote?
I don't really know
it's
how to
like
put it.
Your cursed womb.
Yes, exactly. Like the
what's the quote?
Your poisoned womb, it's making heaven too crowded, I believe, was the line. Which is just some absolutely insane shit. It would have been great. I personally, people have said this in the comments. Some people got a little like, the fact that it's called a something awful documentary, they didn't want it to be about Lowtax. They just wanted it to be about, you know, something awful. And I agree. I would love to watch that documentary, like a 2-hour documentary.
Really, we didn't really do the something awful documentary. So
right. That's all I was saying. Like
more.
It would have been cool in that hypothetical documentary to like go through all these like writers and like see this is where they, you know, they started and like this is where they are now. And a lot of them, like, it's really just crazy to see like how popular like guys like Drill are on Twitter, and like people don't even understand that was like directly.
There's a direct through line.
I mean, I don't want to diminish his personal flair and like comedic wit or whatever, but like that culture is carried over from Fuck You and Die.
I don't want to be like, you have to thank Lowtax for your career, but it's more like, it's interesting.
That's another thing too. I don't want to necessarily overstate it. Just because you got your start posting on something awful doesn't mean like, you know, but that's just the thing is like, it was just the hip place to be. You know what I mean? Like so many cool people,
Let me
you know.
pull up that comment with all the names of like the people who have been on something awful.
Oh yeah, that was a great comment. See, there were some really good comments on the video and I really enjoyed that one in particular.
This is from Hanska. Given just how influential Something Awful was, far more than most of us will realize, I'm surprised there wasn't a list in this video of noteworthy persons who were/are goons. I can confirm as fact that every single one of these people were goons. Zoe Quinn, Neil C. Cierga, Total Biscuit, The Grover House Guy, Vile Rat, Ian Jones Cordy, Brandon Allen Hardesty, Rivers Cuomo, Kane, Derek Smart, Scott Manley, Calvin Wong, Jesse Moynihan, Benjamin Richard Yahtzee Croshaw, H. Bomber Guy, Freddie Wong, Dead Mouse, The Chapo Trap House Team. Okay, I'm just gonna have it like slowly fade out. We're just gonna wait, Linkara's on this list? Like Jonan Vasquez is on this list.
See, some of these guys, I don't like, that might be true. I would have to.
Going back, you were talking about how if someone else made another Something Awful documentary, there'd be a lot more to include. Well, I was thinking, what if someone made like a comprehensive documentary? Like a comprehensive history, like the Geno Samuel doc, but about Something Awful and Lowtax.
Yeah, some topics out there are kind of hard to do in like one video. You'd want like at least the Geno Samuel thing. It's like a very linear story over time. Whereas with Something Awful, it would be more like each episode could just be about one facet of like a thing. Like one could be about like Eve Online and the Goon Swarm or whatever.
God,
and
we
like
didn't
one
talk
could
about
be
Eve at all.
I don't know. Well, just like Eve in particular is a great example, but like just Goon's influence on gaming with like the Goon Squad. This is like, I don't want to overstate it, but like in a lot of games at the time, that was just a prominent clan or whatever. Like I think they had WoW guilds and stuff too. I wasn't really part of that, to be honest, so I don't want to I don't want to overstate it, but Eve in particular, they had a very that game is very much shaped by like the player's actions. So like being the largest faction or whatever for a long period of time, it's just I don't know, it's part of that game's history, I guess.
I think Frederick Knudson's doing a video about it, right?
Right. Well, then he'll be very intimate with the goons and their fleets and swarms or whatever.
Wait. I just realized I didn't clarify why I didn't include the hurricane story. I didn't include the hurricane story just for pacing reasons. That's it. It's not a good reason.
There's a lot of stuff that we like, we could... sorry, I'm stumbling over my words here. Just like the pacing.
Because we're coping.
Yeah, I am coping because it's like it's all like legitimate things that I want to include, but it's like it already took us this long to make that video. You know what I mean? So like,
I wanted to really like rush through like I wanted to rush through the early years of Something Awful, and the hurricane story. Like the problem is once you get to the PayPal controversy, then it really bogs down the like pacing.
It's a little the minutia of it, and doesn't really have a very satisfying ending. The only thing I would say that would have been good for is making people a little more sympathetic towards Rich, because I feel like we portray him pretty like, I think it's just a pretty frank and honest look at his life. We didn't set out trying to make him look bad. We just wanted to say that this is what he did, and it's some pretty shitty stuff.
That's one of the questions I do want to ask you when we get to the general thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, like, were we unfair to Lowtax?
I still think we did a good job. I understand plenty of people, if you're one of those people who's like, he didn't do anything wrong. I can understand if you're already on Lowtax's side, you're gonna think we did him dirty. But I still think we did a pretty like fair job explaining like his like early years. Like
our video is probably one of like the more sympathetic like pieces about Lowtax ever. All the other like documentaries kind of about Lowtax are very like, they're just from Kiwi Farms, okay? Like, and that's fine. It's just we tried to keep it a little balanced. We did show like why people did like him at one point. It's
people
not just...
were so quick to dismiss all the work he did. Like, okay, like to be fair, he was a bad webmaster in many ways.
Yeah, I don't blame them for having that opinion.
But we're talking about the early years. We're talking about like 2000, 2001, you know what I mean? Like when the site was barely getting off the ground, like it could have collapsed at any time, you know what I mean? Like he actually put in a lot of work back in the day. He definitely coasted off success for like most of his life, and he didn't really put in a lot of hard work. I'm not trying to say he was like a hardworking guy, so it's a little confusing what I'm trying to say right now, but tried to portray him like as an actual like, accurate like description of him.
It's a really human downfall, and that's what's interesting to me, that people think we were too harsh on him, is because I honestly think that I gave him a lot of benefit of the doubt that I honestly don't know if I should have, because there's a lot of stuff that wasn't included that makes him look a lot worse. And I know like people will think like, what could you have like left out that makes him look better? You included all like the abuse allegations. And it's like, well, there are clips of Rich literally like ranking his children and like saying that like, oh, I hate this daughter because they grew up and now they talk back to me.
Because, you know, right now my 13-year-old, she's not that pleasant to be with. But like, you know, my 3-year-olds, or 2.5-year-old, she's very fun and says funny things. So I probably put more effort to get her than my 13-year-old. If I were to rank my children, I would say like, you know, my 3-year-old, then my 10-year-old, then my 13-year-old, you know, and I let them know that.
There's like text messages where his daughters refer to him as like birth giver. There's a ton of stories that we didn't get into. Like, and now to be fair, we didn't get into them because they're not necessarily the most like substantiated. But like if we were trying to make like just a hit piece about Lowtax, that's what we would have went to. I intentionally, and I even said this to Ashley before the video was like done, we are going to try to create a very balanced portrait of him, like a very balanced character piece of him. I don't want people to leave it feeling angry at Rich. I want them to feel sad that he turned out that way, you know?
Yeah, I think that one of the deep cuts that like nobody else was going to include in their documentary about this was the letter he wrote to that guy who worked at Voodoo Extreme or whatever. I think that was, again, it was just sort of a nice thing to tie it up at the end, which is like, you know, it lets you reflect on Rich's mistakes, like, because he listed all these issues and then he fell into the same traps or whatever. So it's not like excusing his behavior. It's just allowing you to reflect like he was a human being, a shitty human being, but a human being nonetheless. Well, if you never heard of him before, I feel like you could easily have a way more negative view of him. Like, I do think, like, he comes off as a bad person because, you know, especially his final actions in his final years or whatever.
He did just fucking waste the entire, like, marital estate and then commit suicide, like, abandoning his, like, entire family. I'm not even, like, the person to normally say that, like, yeah, suicide is selfish. Like, I really think that's, like, a shitty opinion to have most of the time. But, like, in this specific case, he was, like, he was planning to, like, kill himself. And in doing so, decided to not leave anything, like, for his family, for his children. It was on purpose.
Remarkably selfish and spiteful, like, specifically his situation. Like,
yeah, I wouldn't say that normally.
I believe that he left no note, and he did it, like, the day of the ruling, so it's just, like, there's not, like, any, like, he didn't overdose, he used a gun. There's no ambiguity.
He used a gun, yeah.
It's,
he shot himself.
It's very, I don't know, it was a really bad suicide. As far as suicides go, not you know, ranking them,
okay.
I would say it's pretty bad, honestly. I don't know. I still feel like even if you, in your last act is, like, the most, like, spiteful, petty, cruel thing, it is still just one thing you did in your life. And like, yeah, you can legitimately say he is a bad person, full stop, because of that. But I still wanted to portray his entire life, you know, and like, you know.
That's why I sympathize with like Elliot Rodgers.
Of course.
I'm just playing.
No, I wanted to see where you're going with that. It's easy to say, oh, good riddance, but like, you know, he did leave his daughters behind. As fucked up as their relationship was, I think it's probably better to have a dad who's alive. I guess the benefit is he can't fuck up their lives any more than he already has, but
I don't know though.
I don't know. I feel really ambivalent about it. Like I don't know. I was really sad when he died, but I wasn't like, oh, he was such a great guy, I wish he wasn't dead. I was just like, fuck, this whole situation just makes me sad.
Redemption arc, boys. It's time to talk about Null. It wasn't like a conscious decision just to leave him out. The reason why Null wasn't put in is the same reason like Fragmaster didn't have a proper conclusion.
Right.
It's just
originally Fragmaster, like he announced the death. We were going to include that, like that's why we sort of brought him up in the beginning part, was we were going to sort of tie it in later, but then, you know, we just sort of had to cut that out for pacing reasons. It was sort of just easier for us to sort of explain to the audience.
As we were snipping like the script, it got closer and closer, and it seemed like the only real people we introduced are Rich and the people in his direct family, and like, you know, his lovers and everything.
That's the reason we didn't like go into bringing all these like writers up. Like it would have been so fun to go into Grover House and stuff. I know, okay, it's a really fun story. If you can go watch like Frederick Knudsen talk about it on his second channel, but like it wouldn't have fit into the context of like we're trying to keep like the narrative flowing throughout time.
To tie it into missed opportunities, that was another missed opportunity. Null, who is the owner of Kiwi Farms, actually offered to recode his entire form at one point, like for a heavily discounted price, and he just turned it down because he was lazy.
Yeah. See, we mentioned this in the video that the site was still using vBulletin. Like, I'm not even a web guy, so I'm not even like a tech guy, so I don't even want to pretend like I know about that.
As far as I'm aware, it was going to be transferred to Zen4.0.
Right. That was so funny. Like, if you don't know all the fucking drama about this bullshit, like the site is running on such archaic fucking spaghetti code, and like he literally had like a fundraiser specifically like donate money so we can transfer it over to Zen4.0, and then they just didn't do it. It still hasn't been done to this day. It's just there's so much fucking bullshit like that.
It still hasn't been done. Fuck.
It still hasn't been done.
God damn it, dude.
He's been using vBulletin for 20 years. It's like, dude, what the fuck? Lowtax would always hire these like system administrators who would just like do like the worst, shittiest possible job, and they would like steal money from him. Like,
yeah, fuck, we didn't mention that.
Zen Death Robot borrowed $5,000 from him and then ghosted him, and then like the site, like nobody was left who could even navigate the weird broken code. The site would have been better if he had like no system admin. Like,
there's so much like bizarre like spaghetti coding. Like Lowtax hard coded his like account so that no one could log in unless they had like his specific IP.
Right.
So like because his fear was if he lost his phone, he couldn't use it. But this also made it so he just couldn't like log in anywhere but home.
There's all this weird shit. Like when they finally banned Lowtax, like it was like an incentive. Like you donate a lot of money, we'll let you ban Lowtax. Like it wasn't even like a standard ban. They had to do like some special bullshit because
his account was like it's like one of those spaghetti code things where if you pull something out,
it's a load bearing account or something. Because yeah, they manually changed his avatar to the banned thing, and then like cause the reason you can tell is because the post doesn't link to the actual like lepers colony archive, or that's what they call the ban list.
Yeah. Cybershell, this is the final question of the entire podcast, the big one. When are we making the Schmorky doc?
That was legitimately one of like the most asked questions in the comments.
Yeah,
so many people are asking for that.
We knew that this was going to happen. We were like saying like the moment we release this, everyone's going to be like, where's the Schmorky doc? And it's like, well, I don't want to make it.
I don't want to make it. That
maybe one day that will change, but I don't really want to make it.
I was telling Bernie the sad fact is like from the sheer amount of research we both did, probably no one is better equipped to make that documentary right now than us. But I don't want to make it. I just don't want to do it. Full stop.
I just don't want to. I don't know.
It's okay. So here's the thing. Like, yeah, like even if you like are like Lowtax sucks, who cares? This guy's irrelevant. It would be better if everyone forgot him. I disagree. I think not only is his tale like an interesting like cautionary tale, like don't look at this guy's life and then don't do this.
Yeah.
It's also just the sheer impact he had on the web, and it's everywhere. It's like an infinite fractal is what I was trying to say. There's so many little stories on something awful. There's so many ways it affects modern culture. Like one you had mentioned in your notes, right? Lowtax decided he wanted to shill this random video, Bart the General, and it was just this weird, like strange looking like animation by this like French art group called Famicom. I don't know why he decided this random video, but like I know personally, like I'm pretty sure that the Something Awful like shill squad actually sort of helped that video go a little bit viral. Like that video has
not
its
as
fans.
much as he wanted, but it did have some.
It's not okay. Not a lot of people know about that, but I know for a fact that Bart the General video. I know for a fact that influenced C-Boy RD, who would work on like famous internet cartoons such as Dilbert 2 and Dilbert 3, and
then that would lead to Pilot Red Sun.
And those I know for a fact that those also influenced the sort of general vibe and aesthetic of Pilot Red Sun. So like, yeah, even just like some random meme Lowtax decided he wanted to shill, sort of like reverberating across the internet. I just tried to reach out. I just wanted to get a comment if Schmorky had any thoughts on Rich's death, but I did not get a reply.
Yeah, I do wonder, what does Schmorky think about that? They were best friends for a couple of years.
I'm genuinely curious. I found some very interesting gaming garbage clips of Lowtax. I had to sift through so much of that fucking god-awful channel. But yeah, Lowtax talking just about Schmorky.
Yeah. Talk about that. In his final year, he was so lonely, he was begging for like Schmorky to come back and talking about how he missed him.
He had a lot of unresolved shit. He would say fucked up shit like, hey, it's like, yeah, I sometimes sometimes have like dreams about killing Schmorky and stuff because I have all this like unresolved like shit, you know, because he specifically said like he never got any closure because, you know, Schmorky just I don't know, sort of ghosted everyone and vanished. And it is sad. Like Schmorky legitimately was his best friend. And, you know, like they lived, they didn't live together. I don't know if Schmorky literally lived at the office, but they lived close by.
Like, slept together, you know, they cuddled.
Yeah. I don't know all the details, but yeah, it's just sad. Even like years after the fact, he was still talking about him, bringing it up, and it's just like, fuck, I don't know. It was just sad to see.
So I think that's pretty much all we wanted to talk about for this first episode. In the description below, we'll once again be linking to the GoFundMe, which is now at $92,000 of the 90,000 goal.
Yeah, I have no idea how many people, if any, donated directly because of ours. Like, I saw a good amount of people. Like, there were not a lot of donations for a while.
Yeah,
I don't want to take any fucking credit because of this.
We're not taking credit for that, by the way.
I don't want to take credit. That's what I'm saying. I don't want to preemptively. I'm not taking credit for any of them donations, but I hope
like one day
nice.
You like get in a tight financial spot and you just go up to them and like, hey, I kind of need that money back.
Jesus Christ. No. Yeah. If the story moved you, I don't know. Feel free to donate to the GoFundMe. I thought it was important to include that.
We told Ashley we would do that. About like Schmorky and garbage like have moved you.
Yeah, if nobody, this is why I was like, you can't, people are just gonna start turning it off if you put that in.
I mean, you know, it's just good to have it because I mean 90,000 is a lot, but it's split between like 3 people. Like it can dry up pretty fast.
This is what they're getting instead of a father who is going to provide for them with alimony and child support. So, you know, think about it that way. It's yeah. Well, thank you everyone for listening to episode 1 of NETLORE. That's what it's called, right? NETLORE. Okay, NETLORE, yes. And I've been Cy Rochelle, and this has been my other host, the two hosts.
Me, Bernie,
Bedhead
I just realized
Bernie.
we didn't introduce ourselves.
Okay, should we record an introduction that we can just manually insert at the beginning?
No, just finish the outro.
Well, the episode's over. It's over. The outro's over as well.
Okay.
Goodbye, everyone.